We're live now.
Right, we'll give some time for some folks to log on here. I already see folks logging on, so we'll give everybody just a few minutes.
How's the weather by you, Jason?
Here in Chicago, cold? It is a little chilly. It is in the low 60s this week. Can't complain though. We're not in Denver, which had its first snow of the year yesterday. So it was 100 degrees in Denver a couple of days ago, snow yesterday, and it'll be like 90 in the next couple of days. So roller coaster for the folks.
Wow. How's Germany, Florian? What's going on over there? How's the weather look like?
Well, I mean, we had it a little bit chilly over the last weekend, but today was a beautiful day again. So we're on the edge of moving into autumn and getting a little bit colder, but still okay. So
cool. And Marco, your side?
My side, we are at the end of summary today we are Celsius degrees, so we are around 25. So 25. It's pretty nice. It's still pretty nice the weather in Italy on this day.
Very good. Okay,
very good. So we've got some folks on here. Do we want to go ahead and get started there, Florian and team? Noman, we good?
Let's go, Jason.
All right. So welcome everybody to our second edition of our 4-part webinar series. And today I'd like to introduce a few folks that will be joining the team and the panel for today. First of all, my name's Jason Miller. I'm going to be your moderator and kind of your guide through today's journey. Along with that, we have experts from around the world. Noman is joining us from Detroit. Wendy is also joining us from Detroit. Florian from Germany, and Marco is joining us from Italy today. So thank you everybody for being here. We'll kind of introduce as we go through. So let's get started today. So Noman, can you remind everybody what IndustryX is and what we're doing here today?
Okay. All right. So let's talk about IndustryX. We are initiative born in Detroit, born at Wayne State, and our focus is operational excellence. And when we talk operational excellence, we want to bring technology, we want to bring leadership. We want to talk about Industry 4.0, which is the key driver of operational excellence. So that's the key focus, and we welcome everyone. And we have getting a lot of following and a lot of interest in this initiative. So we're looking forward for everyone to talk to us, join us, and be a part of this initiative. Thank you, Jason.
And no problem, Noman. Thank you very much. And just as a reminder, we're a great partner. So Industry Reply here in North America and the Reply Network, we are a leading global system integrator. We're here partnering with IndustryX and with other companies to help deliver some of the most innovative solutions across the supply chain, including manufacturing, supply chain, customer experience. If you think about that entire information sharing value chain. So Industry Reply here in the US, we've also got Florian from Industrie Germany, and I've got Marco on the call here from one of our other Reply companies, which really focuses heavily on the IIoT and manufacturing segment. So we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. As we start today, I want to kind of pose a question, and we'll get to the slide here in a second. But a lot of people struggle. What is IIoT? And I think everybody has a little bit of different perspective on what IIoT is. And let's just go around the horn really quick. And Noman, we'll start with you. To you, Noman, what is IIoT?
IIoT is about production efficiency, operational reliability, and supply chain excellence. For me, is the connection between the digital and the physical assets, and using the power of data, define a path and to analyze, visualize, and decide on what we need to do to improve the whole process. This is just a very basic definition in my view. And then obviously there are a lot of experts here who can add more to this definition.
Yeah, and let's go to Wendy next. And Wendy, you're from the management consulting side, correct? So talk to us in your expertise and a little bit about what you do and what is IIoT to you?
IIoT to me and my group is really a tool for providing value. And that word value means something different to every customer that we touch. It could be cost, it could be throughput, it could be downtime. So for us, it's a very powerful tool that really enables continuous improvement and allows us to provide greater value than we can with just traditional or conventional tools that currently exist in manufacturing today.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Florian and Marco, will come to you next. You guys are even more on the practitioner side, right? Helping drive IT initiatives. So when you work with customers, and Florian, you're really on the IoT path side, what is IoT to you and your customers that you work with?
I think I repeat a little bit what we heard before. I mean, for me, IoT is a collection of technologies that allows a customer to connect the target value add. So what is the value I want to generate with data sources he already has, right? So this might be products, production, whatever. But at the end of the day, for me, it's a combination of target value add, concrete description of the problem I want to solve, the value it generates, and then the technology stack that delivers that. It's pretty broad definition, but at the end of the day, everybody pays for the value, nothing else.
I think that's absolutely on point. And Marco, also from the IT and the practitioner side, you guys work with customers in helping create that virtual environment and that digital twin for manufacturing. So when you work with customers, what is IoT to you and to your customers?
IIoT for us is the most important vehicle to gather data, to gather real-time data, but also to gather all the data that we can put in a big data lake and learn our artificial intelligence algorithm. And this is what a digital platform search to produce value for the customers.
Absolutely. And I think what we can see from this just brief discussion on what is IoT is that to different people, it's different things, and they're all correct. It is the ultimate connection between the physical and the digital world that helps us transform business. And Noman, let's come back to you for a second and back to the slide a little bit, right? And I think this is a quote from a recent McKinsey study, but IoT is new, but it's not so new, but it's growing, and there's a significant impact that IoT can make in business. Talk to us a little bit about what that impact is.
The impact is phenomenal, is huge. So anywhere from 10 trillion different research studies that I've seen, the numbers are from anywhere from 10 trillion to 14 trillion in economic value by 2030. And the whole idea of driving this economic value is, like we're talking about, is to understand the issues, the pain points, analyze those issues, and visualize those issues in an operation setting so that people are able to see and then make some decisions based upon that. And those decisions can be both can be reactive, like on the spot, and predictive decisions as well. So that's where the value is. That's where the 14 trillion in economic value is coming. They're not coming by installing the sensors and the actuators and all the things that we hear around IIoT. Because when the word IIoT comes, immediately comes to mind is, to a lot of people's mind is, oh, sensors, actuators, we got to do a lot of those things, but it's more than that. So I think as we move forward, let's talk more about these points and also bring some of the case studies that we have done.
Sure, I think that's a great point. And you actually mentioned a couple of points that we've got on our up for discussion next, which is some of the key considerations when you're thinking about IoT. And I want to kind of talk to Wendy. I want to talk to you for a second. So when we think about a path or a journey that a company is going to take, when they think about, should I start IoT implementation? How do I use IoT implementation? You know, you're a management consultant. What are some of the customers thinking about? What are some of the things they should think about that maybe they're not thinking about?
Well, a lot of times folks are looking at IIoT as innovation and using it just for the sake of saying that they're being innovative, which really isn't always the right approach. So really, you know, we ask key questions about their pain points and what KPIs in their operation are they really trying to enhance and improve. And then also we have to really try to tie that to, you know, return on investment. And the maturity model and the culture of the company as well. All of those things have to sort of line up in order for us to really get a good basis of a starting point, the type and level of IoT, and really what we're trying to solve, and making sure the customer is getting good value.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, when we think about customers on any IT transformation journey, IIoT is no different. And Florian, I think one of the things that customers may struggle with is even defining what this journey may look like. What is you know, the path? How can I even think about where to put this in? And in your experiences, as you work with this idea of initial applications and value scaling for IoT, what are some of the things that you're talking to customers about when it comes to this path and this journey around IIoT?
Yeah. So look, based on my experience over the last 7 years, especially, I mean, there are 2 or 3 patterns which I see regularly, which most of the time don't really support the customer in getting real value out of the technology. So the first thing is, like Wendy said, yeah, it was for quite a while the placebo for being innovative and digital, right? So I do an IoT project and I'm digital, and that's it. But it didn't take into account that it's actually a transformation of how things operate, right? So you need to change a people behavior or process based on IoT output and technology in order to generate the value add, right? If I build an app and do the same thing that I did before, there's no value out of that. And that's the second pattern that I see, that a lot of customers, I mean, when we talk about, you know, the solution design and Axels, for example, we can clearly see that a lot of teams focus on the technology layers, right? But then we ask, okay, so what type of value add element you add against that? And then the discussion starts. And to be honest, it's most of the times not easy, because it requires very detailed know-how of your production process or of your customer's process to understand what are the value drivers, what do I need to change in the process to generate value. But I think that's the way it is, right? You need to deep dive really and have a concrete use case. And I think these 2 things, right? Top-down, project-based innovation type of stuff, it's a challenge. So you need to change that. And the second thing is you need to focus on value and then build a technology stack against it, not the other way around.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I look at IIoT as the same way that a lot of people looked at, you know, Lean Six Sigma processes when everybody was running around getting their black belt certification and looking at how to transform their manufacturing operations by going lean. IIoT implementation is just that next step. So now that we've got, you know, pretty lean operations, how do we then really start to continue to drill down and find those additional value add points? Whether it's, you know, before it was about processes, it was about flow. Now it's about machine operations. Now it's about timings. It's about feeding. It's about gathering that information to find where those pain points are at. Whereas before we may have done it with some manual lean process, now we can actually collect the data and analyze the data. So I think IIoT is just that next step towards, you know, perfecting that process even more so. And Florian, let's stick with you for a second. And as we talk about this path or this journey, right? Customers are in a million different stages for this, right? But one of the things that we see a lot is that customers will start by going down an IoT path, or they say, hey, I want to go down an implementation path, and then they get stuck. What's the status of the world right now? Why are people struggling with this so much to get past this initial phase?
Right. So yeah, I think you phrased it rightly, Jason. So my experience, and you can see that on the chart, is that if you look at a customer base, and this is based on customers which were connected to an IoT system, right? So it's not that they were before that, but they already embraced IoT and wanted to use it. But if you look at that, the vast majority, 80% of them are displaying data, but are looking for a concrete use case to solve and to generate a value add out of that. And I think there's of course, the reality is that you cannot have a generic approach to that point. I mean, of course, you heard a lot about use cases like condition monitoring, predictive maintenance. I mean, these are all good buzzwords, but from a technology and process point of view, it makes a huge difference if you talk about condition monitoring for a press line in automotive, or an ice cream filling line, or a pump somewhere out in the water, in the field. And also the value add and the process you attach to that is completely different, right? Maybe for the pump, it's not even a value add to condition monitoring because it's so cheap they can replace it. But for the press line, of course, if you have a downtime for an hour, it's $1 million cost. So it really requires expert and domain know-how to do that. And what I've seen a lot of customers struggling, really activating their experts to contribute use cases and ideas that can be addressed with IoT. We're coming back again to these central projects, which I talked about. So these central projects I've seen, the project type of approach, in my opinion, fails most of the time to really get the operator from the shop floor up into the management's office and displaying his ideas and what can be improved, and then generate value out of that. So
yeah,
I think that's a key point.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And we're seeing some conversation in the chat about even not just individual customers, but even maybe by geographical regions. We've got Doug is chiming in from Brazil, and he says that down in Brazil, it's only the large scale auto manufacturers or medicine companies that are even thinking about this stuff and starting to roll this out. And I think he's right. And even, and Doug, I'll tell you, here in the US, there are definitely segments of business that aren't even thinking about this yet. And there's so much more opportunity out there for people to take advantage of the technology. And I saw another comment a few minutes ago. Let's see, it was from Ramesh. And Ramesh, I think you're absolutely right. This is a great example where technology is ahead of where people are even thinking about how to use it. So I think there's a lot of different factors in there. And one of the next factors I want to talk about is a lot of times, companies and IT departments, and sometimes we know they don't even talk, but a lot of times just our processes or way of doing business have slowed us down. And if we think about even where we were a few years ago and only doing waterfall implementations from an IT standpoint, now we're starting to talk about CI/CD and this continuous improvement loop. And Florian, talk to us about how that type of mentality and maybe these traditional approaches are really hindering us from moving forward, and how maybe the CIDC path or CI/CD path or agile or iterative or whatever you want to talk about can help us improve that.
Yeah, so look, I mean, on this chart is basically a little bit of summary of what I think is not working well. I mean, over my tenure of working with customers, and this is a summary and key results out of 100 projects I did on IoT and Industry. I mean, the vast majority of these projects were driven by a central PMO type of approach, right? So you have a central team. Most of the time, the CEO comes in, digitalization is important. We now need to get digital. Here's my team, and now drive digitalization. And this is what I meant with waterfall digitalization, right? So you have a PMO-based approach, you do a setup, you do an innovation workshop, you do a lot of things. But at the end of the day, you find out that if you really don't talk to the people down at the shop floor, that at the end of the day need to use the solution, right? It doesn't help if you have a central PMO, digitalization PMO, which does a cool POC, but doesn't hit the ground at the shop floor. Most of the times they're barely involved. I mean, that I've seen a lot. Yeah, so you have a central team who does use case innovations without talking or not involving the people that need to use it enough. It's not a continuous effort. It's a project-based approach, right? So you have a project, you have a certain limited amount of time and budget. Most of the time, big bang budgets that drive certain things. And the challenge there is that these projects hit an existing setup, right? It's not that, at least most of the customers don't have already some automation or don't have already a SCADA system or an MES system. And if you then if you don't take that into account, that you need to incrementally, in my opinion, incrementally shift these traditional setups, use case by use case and value add by value add, from what is in today onto a central IoT-based solution platform, that's you lose the people, right? You cannot go to someone who is operating a press line for 30 years and tell them, so tomorrow we will do it completely different, without stating him what is the value and what's the use case behind it. So I mean, these are some challenges I see, right? So this one-off big bang digitalization projects, I rarely seem successful. Rather, like you mentioned, Jason, you need to provide them, you need to provide the setup in the organization, a means and a tool that allows them to continuously come up with use cases, to efficiently configure solutions against these use cases and roll these use cases out at scale without sending thousands of service teams out all the time. And I think that's the difference between the central waterfall approach versus a continuous innovation approach. Jason, we can't hear you.
Of course, I was trying to be polite and I didn't want to talk over you,
No,
so
no.
I put myself on mute. So you mentioned a point there that I want to bring up, which I think is important, which is not always do customers already have SCADA or MES systems in place, and the plan for how are we going to collect data, where are we going to collect it from, what data can I collect? I think that's different for everyone. I mean, we're going to go talk about a couple of use cases here in just a minute, but one of the base foundations is I have to be able to collect data from somewhere, right? And if you don't have that MES or you don't have that SCADA system, it can be daunting to say, oh my gosh, do I have to completely rework my organization and change out all my factory floor? And I think the answer is no. And you know, we've got other companies inside Reply that Concept Reply, for example, that can help customers implement low cost, quick value adds for putting sensors on existing machines so that you don't have to go through those big overhaul processes. So even if you're in a basic operating system or operating model from the manufacturing floor, you don't have to feel like this is so daunting. I'm going to have to spend millions to completely change my manufacturing systems to be able to take advantage of some IoT. There's quicker, easier ways to do that. So I just want people to understand that it may seem daunting, as Florian mentioned, but if you take the big picture approach, which is, hey, I've got to do all of this, you're going to struggle. But if you take it small pieces by small pieces and you continually improve throughout that process, you can find a lot of success fairly quick. Now, to talk about some of these things, we want to talk about some use cases. And Marco, I want to come up and I want to start with you. And you've got a case study here that we're going to look at about the key role of having a digital platform. And I think what you mean by digital platform is taking that physical manufacturing plant and bringing it into a digital world. And that means creating digital twins, being able to get the data out, all of that. So talk to us just a little bit about this case study, and you don't have to go into specific client names, but talk to us a little bit about maybe some of the pain points and some of the things that were considered and how you solved this.
Okay, Jason. This is a use case that is related to a big company, is a worldwide company, even if it's focused on one specific metal shop plant in Europe. And this company that, even if it's a big one player in the world, doesn't have an MIS solution, but wants to, and for this reason, they expect to move from their actual strategy for managing manufacturing processes from reactive to predictive. What does it mean? Now, at the beginning of the project, they just react to the issues when they got it. They fix it and they go ahead with the production. And they want to move to a predictive strategies in two steps. First of all, adding an IoT, an industrial IoT infrastructure able to collect real-time data and make them able even to react, but more and more fast than before. This is the first step, okay? And for this, to achieve these steps, they, with us, implement an IoT infrastructure that is composed by some edge computers that are installed in the floor, okay, with some sensors connected to existing machines that sometimes are new, but most of the times are old machines. So applying what a retrofitting approach to the IoT, to the machines, installing specific sensors like environment temperature sensors, oil temperature sensors, or just sensor on the clamps to identify the status of the machines, or some movement sensors, okay, something like that, in order to collect two big kind of information that are information about the status of the machine, but also information about the production progression of the machines, okay. Put this data in a manufacturing execution system together with manual input that came up from the operator, and have a real-time monitoring of the shop floor. This is the first step. The second one is to predict, to try to predict in advance possible future failure in the processes, in order to obviously correct the process before it become a production issues. And this is the second step, and this is based on is achievable with a set of technologies that is typical of a digital platform: artificial intelligence, big data, digital twin, and also discrete event simulation techniques.
Okay,
this
so
is more or less the case.
Yeah, so Marco, when this customer was able to look at this and start to implement some of these things, what were some of the outcomes that they were either hoping to achieve or did achieve?
Okay, they for sure have been able to increase really a lot the accuracy of their KPIs. This is the first achievement, a very important one, because they were producing based on standard cycle times that was based on that was not based on real data coming from the shop floor. And this is one of the first important result that make them able to rearrange mainly the workforce that they are using in the shop floor. They are using workforce for production, but also for material handling, of course, maintenance. So they have been able, thanks to these more accurate KPIs, to rearrange their workforce. And this is the first achievement.
Okay.
And they have been able to achieve this one because they got data from the machines and not from the people using instruments like Excel files to provide data to the supervisor. Okay, and this is the first one. The second one is related to the prediction. Okay, the prediction for them is something, and the simulation is something that will help us, will help them to reorganize their shop floor. They want to have the possibility to predict future issue, but also to have an environment where to do what-if analysis based on new organizational models or new business models in order to understand in which way they will be able to face new products or to optimize their organization within the plants.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that customers or companies can try to achieve from implementing these types of technologies, right, is to gather more data so that you can start looking at different scenarios and doing those what if analysis to be able to, you know, see, hey, if I'm going to add a third line or if I'm going to reconfigure a current line, what are some of the impacts that I might see, not only from my machines, but from a people standpoint as well. And I think Florian and Noman mentioned the people aspect of it a little bit earlier. So let's move on a little bit. And Marco, talk to us a little bit about what the platform was that you used to help achieve some of these outcomes.
Okay, very quickly. A digital platform, in our vision, is first of all, should first of all integrate all the Industry 4.0 pillar technologies to make them available and easy to use for the application. It means for sure industrial IoT, cloud, big data, all about artificial intelligence. That means machine learning, but also deep learning, reinforcement learning, and all together in a microservices architecture. So a digital platform should provide services easy to combine according to the customer needs. This is our vision about for the main important things that a digital platform should have. The second one is using this platform to reinvent the typical the application that manage the manufacturing processes, to reinvent based on a service-oriented approach, but also moving to a mobile approach for the usage of the application. And this is true for any kind of application in a manufacturing operation management suite, both for planning, execution, quality, monitoring and reporting, maintenance, simulation, whatever. So from our standpoint, a digital platform should be a set of technologies that enable, in a specific architecture based on cloud and microservices, a new generation of application to support traditional manufacturing process and also to leverage for new manufacturing processes. And this is what we are trying to do with our shop floor digital twin application.
Okay, so let's look at how this actually plays out. So the brick platform that you used, if we look at how this lays, call it within an existing shop floor layout, right? So the idea is that you can start from anywhere, right? So talk to us about the different layers that the brick platform allows you to play in.
The first one related to this use case is the landscape that we found when we started the project. So some legacy systems, ERP, PLM, and whatever, and the shop floor composed by machines and people working in the shop floor for maintenance, production, quality, material handling. Okay, this is the starting point. The first step that we had is to identify and design and implement an IoT infrastructure based on an edge platform composed by some edge computers directly in the floor, connected to specific sensors identified for each single machine, according to the way in which we can detect easily the status of the machine, the status of the production on that machine. Obviously, the IoT infrastructure main goal is to collect data and push them in a big data repository, the data lake layer, we call it, where also we put data coming from the application, the mobile application that support the processes in the shop floor. It's really important that the application should work in a mobile way, because they can guarantee a near real-time data also coming from the operators, not only from the machines. This is, to me, a very really important step. Second, all this data in the data lake are managed by the shop floor digital twin that provide to the simulation application a real-time twin of the physical shop floor, and provide to the simulation simulation algorithm dynamic real-time data that are more that make possible to simulate based on more accurate data, instead of a typical approach based on static data. And second, this data, the simulation layer, together with the physical shop floor, provide to the monitoring and dashboarding application the KPIs to be compared in order to identify deviation in the process and then prevent possible failure in the production. This is, let me say, an easy way to explain in which the digital platform support our customer moving to from reactive to predictive to a predictive strategy. Okay.
Yep. I think, Marco, I think this slide in particular gives a really good high-level overview of how you get from that shop floor machine all the way up into the holistic platform, which would include your management operations, your business intelligence, your simulation, and your overall monitoring that can allow you to transform your business and start to move to more of a predictive analytics solution to address your business needs. So thank you very much for a lot of that. So I'd like to transition over to Wendy really quick. And Wendy, Marco just talked to us about a great use case about how we collect data. Talk to us a little bit about how we can then leverage that data to help solve some true business problems.
And Marco's case is really a great segue into this slide. And as a former production manager at a major automotive OEM, you know, the traditional tools give you a historical insight into what happened. And that information really does help you solve chronic problems that have been happening throughout your system historically, but it's really a lagging indicator. I used to feel like I was coming into work every day and I'm flying a plane with no radar. I can see where I've gone, but I don't know what's going to happen, you know, that day. There's nothing to give me an indication of where I'm going. And the IIoT tools, especially like I was just saying, you know, what Marco just reviewed, it really can give you a leading indicator and give you that predictive analytics to help you anticipate and resolve issues before they happen. And that really is the basis of starting that continuous process improvement and cycle, and really the empowerment of people all the way down from the operator level all the way to the top. So I think that's really a huge key. And I think that's where it's really going to provide a lot of value to our customers.
Yeah, and Wendy, you mentioned right there, right, and we talk about this last bullet point, which is starting that process and then getting into this continuous improvement cycle, which is great segue for our next topic, which is value scaling and how you start to get into this continuous improvement cycle. So Florian, I want to kind of turn the floor over to you and let you drive here for a few minutes. But talk to us about this case study and how customers can go from crawling to walking to running by using platforms like Axelis to really get to this value scaling idea.
Yeah, happy to do that, Jason. So look, my use case, my case study is around a larger automotive OEM, and I selected it because it was for me one of the most impressive projects I've experienced on IoT. And the background is that the customers, of course, in automotive nowadays need to finance a technology shift, right, from combustion to electric. Now, not taking into account Corona, even where you have, again, more cost pressure and flexibility required. Now, this customer was the boldest one, in my opinion, because they decided we want to collect all data from all plants, all brands globally into one common IoT data infrastructure. And based on this data, generate use cases to save 30% of the production cost within 4 years. Now, 30% production cost out is, tremendous. I've never heard such a target, and it might be overstated just to kick it off, but the target was very clear. They expect substantial cost reduction out of the production process from IoT use cases. Now, the challenge they have is that although you might, first of all, it's about identifying use cases. We talked about that, right? So who has the knowledge in the company to really identify a problem and a waste which you might be able to address with an IoT-based use case, meaning analyzing data out of data sources and providing a process or change for people enablement. And again, initially the central PMO-based approach was selected, but they shortly found out that you need to actually activate all your production experts you have, and that goes down to each and every, to a lot of plants, to a lot of production processes, to a lot of operators. And the means of providing them the ability to continuously create ideas and document them into a system in a structured manner which allows them to build a solution against it was Axelis, so value scaling accelerator. That's point number one. The second point is that when you build a solution for one plant or a PUC for one use case, right? The challenge is if you want to replicate now this use case across all your sites which have a similar production process, and you need to improve that the world is not standardized, right? You might be wondering, but of course, the German plant is different than the US plant. You have different, machine builders may be different, even if the same machine, different firmware versions, different production network communication standards, different whatever. So you need to have a process and a methodology how you can build a solution stack against the use case, but manage the solution stack and adapt it easily and flexible to the current installation without starting a recoding and reintegration of everything. And again, here the Axelis Solution Designer is the tool designed for that, where you have a Lego block-based approach and combining the solution elements, connecting them, and then also identify the blocks which are still missing, and you only focus on developing that. And then, of course, also providing a platform for rolling these use cases out in a scalable manner, meaning executable workflows for the people on the shop floor, step by step, guiding them through what they need to do in order to install now a solution. And I think this was the mental shift, going away from, okay, we do a project, down to, okay, we install a methodology in the tool chain that allows a continuous innovation, continuous development, and scalable deployment of these solutions. And with that, you gradually, use case by use case, you switch your existing setup over into our IoT-based future. And of course, the results are that you're faster, so you get more use cases, faster time to value, and you reduce basically the risk of your digitalization effort by going away from one central approach, which might fail, into an enabled continuous innovation process supported by Axelis Value Scaling Accelerator.
So Florian, let me ask you a question, because you mentioned use case about 5 or 6 times in that discussion.
Right.
Somebody says use case, I think, okay, Jira, right, or something like that. So what makes a platform like Axelis different from Jira? Why is it
I
more
mean,
applicable in this case than say using Jira or something like that?
right. Yeah, it's an interesting question, and actually interesting. What I found even more interesting is that only so far one customer came up with exactly this point, Jason. I mean, Jira was built for project management, right? So it's a project management tool, but it's not good in managing. I mean, elements. Which I mean, IoT is a modular technology, right? It's a combination of different elements, like an asset, a sensor, an edge element, an AI algorithm, UI element, and not managing these combinations of elements into one consistent solution, plus integrating into the stack, which is for me a part of that, the value add elements, right? So is it OEE? Is it an uptime? Is it a value driver? And what processes need to change in that? So of course, you could try to rebuild what Axelis is with, well, I'm not even sure about that, with Jira, but Axelis is not built for project management. Axelis is built for identifying use cases, configuring solutions against that, and then executing workflows that allow you to install the solution. So there might be some components which you could say, yeah, workflow is something, or checklist or something is what you could do in Jira. But the magic happens before that you have a structured methodology to describe on a drag and drop basis with your defined elements, a use case with value add. You then configure the solution against that, which has nothing to do with project management. You just configure it and then you derive the implementation workflow. So it addresses a different problem.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you mentioned there was helping to identify the value add piece, right? So it's not just here's a use case. Okay, well, let's go build something that solves the problem, right? Or addresses the use case. Your idea in this solution can actually help find the value adds and look at implementation costs versus value add versus short-term, long-term, those types of things. And like you said, from a flow standpoint, it can really help show that. So yeah, I think it's interesting because these types of things, a lot of times people don't even know are out there, right? They just know what they know. And I know Jira, right? We use Jira. Everybody uses Jira now. But those types of things, you can try to cram I always use square peg round hole type of thing, but making sure that you have the right tool for the job, I think, is very important. And I think that a platform like Axelis is a really good way to really have the right tool that focuses on the IoT side. So no, I appreciate that. And as we go through here, we got just a couple of minutes left and a couple of things we want to talk about. What I want to remind everybody is that this is part of an ongoing webinar series. And this webinar series, this is webinar 2. We've talked a lot today about driving operational excellence with IoT, and we've talked about what IoT is. We've talked about how to use IoT, how to go down this path. But by no means have we talked about everything today. There is so much to continue to consider when it talks about Industry 4.0 and IIoT, and we're going to continue this. So we had the kickoff a couple weeks ago. Today we talked about IoT from an operational standpoint. In 2 weeks, we've got a gentleman from an auto manufacturer out in California that's going to join us. We've got some more guests from Industry Reply. They're going to join us, and we're going to talk about how to. Now we've talked about operations. Now let's talk about upstream. Let's talk about that supply chain and how to drive IoT in the supply chain. So that'll be our next topic in a couple of weeks, and then we'll wrap it up with that transformation roadmap and what that looks like. I know we've went over a lot of information today, and Marco and Florian have talked about some specific products. If you want more information about these products or specific topics that we've talked about today from Industry Reply, check out these websites, brickreply.com, industryreply.com, or you can email us infousa@reply.com. I also want to talk a little bit about if there's information. I saw some great conversations in the chat. If you want to partner with IndustryX and partner with Industry Reply, reach out to us. Click on the links that are on the IndustryX webpage. Let's get in touch with Dr. Chinham and get in touch with Noman, and you can reach out to us here at Industry Reply, and we'll all work together to help drive some things. And I'm looking at the attendees list, and we've got quite a few folks that have attended multiple webinars so far. So I appreciate you guys coming back and sitting through this today, because we've covered some new topics today. So I would like to open it up to some Q&A, and I think we've done a pretty good job today of answering a lot of the questions and stuff that have come in. And to kick it off, I want to go back to you, Wendy. we've talked a little bit about some platforms and we've talked about some accelerators. You're on the management consulting side. You're pretty agnostic from which platform to what technologies or whatever. How do companies go about thinking about what tools and platforms they want to use as they go through the selection process on this journey?
Well, there are several, but I think one of the most important is that I advise a lot of clients to really take a good hard look at how the platforms will engage and communicate and handshake with existing software platforms. If they have a legacy CMMS, if they have, an ERP and an MES system, how is this platform going to interact with those, or is it time to upgrade to something that's itself a little bit more agnostic in terms of how it communicates? Because I think it's so important and it's so key that your IoT platform be able to pull information from all of those different areas successfully without a whole lot of either data loss or a whole lot of coding or transcription or anything that has to happen to translate that information. I think that's extremely important, especially with legacy systems. Eventually, the idea is you want that IoT system to really talk and communicate back and forth with your entire factory operation system.
Absolutely. And Marco, I want to come to you with this a little bit. So Wendy brought up a really good point there, which is, whether it's pre-built connectors or the ability to interface with various systems. And I know your platform, you've already got a lot of the connectors built, right? You've got a lot of OBC connectors. You've got some SCADA controller connectors. I know you guys already talking, I think, with Siemens and Rockwell. You've got a bunch of pre-built connectors already, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have the ability with that platform to talk to SCADA control systems, PLC controllers, as well as just some automatic line feeding type controllers as well, right?
Yes, basically with all the new protocol, we can talk with sensors, PLC, SCADA, and so on.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, and I know that sometimes in a lot of the conversation we had today, which is the ability to pull information, a lot of times, even in your IoT, and I know Brick does this as well, you can also push, right? So I think that one of the things to do is to be able to do PLC programming, right? Be able to push going the other way. So you could, I think there's a great video out there, and maybe I'll find a link and post it in later, where we've actually used Brick to do the little Lego car factory. Absolutely love that. I love that out there. And I don't know, I've got a link to that video somewhere. It's probably on my Mac, which died earlier this week. So it's been a rough week for computers. What other questions do we have out here? I think I saw a couple of them. I saw somebody had a question for Wendy, I think. Let me see here. Ramesh, did you have a question? Yeah. So the question for you, Wendy, was from Ramesh. Which industries do you see leading in this initiative for 4.0 and IoT implementation?
Definitely, I've seen a lot in automotive, and also pharmaceuticals is also taking a really good hard look. Their KPIs tend to be more quality driven, more so than throughput or downtime driven or cost driven. So I think those are the two leading industries right now that I'm seeing that are really trying their best to adopt and take advantage of the capabilities that these systems have to offer.
And Florian, I think being in Europe, that might be a little bit different perspective over in Europe, right? I think we're seeing a lot of automotive manufacturers that are taking this up, right? And it's not just in the day-to-day production tasks. It could even be in quality control and quality inspections. Yes. Yes.
I mean, look, of course, Europe and especially Germany is pretty automotive heavy. So definitely automotive is one of the leading industries there. But the interesting thing is that over the last years, I would say a lot of industries have turned to investigate cases. And what I, for example, surprisingly, what I found very advanced in the meantime on IoT applications is agriculture, for example, right? So it's completely different, but they have connected trucks. They use satellite imagery. So there's a lot of data coming together to solve the problem how to best harvest a field in the moment. So I agree. So automotive is definitely leading, but aerospace, pharma, chemistry, I mean, food and beverage, all of them are embracing that, and all the companies have the digitalization IoT approach.
What about telecom? Has anybody seen anybody in the telecom community using this? Another question from one of the attendees today. I'm not aware of any telecom use for this yet. I mean, I'm sure there probably is in the manufacturing space, you know, maybe Qualcomm or somebody like that.
I mean, yeah, so in my previous position, we were working together with telco providers, but rather from the perspective of providing infrastructure for collecting data, right? And of course, there are then, based on this, there are use cases in logistics, for example, fleet management. But to improve operations in telco, I have never, seen a larger use case at home.
Yeah, I mean, Ramesh, to answer your question, the larger scale the manufacturing, the more potential, right? So you mentioned a small factory in Texas, and yeah, I think there's possible, and like Florian said, especially on the supply chain side, which will be our next webinar. So I'll tease that one out again. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that area as well, right? So everything from automated line feeding to AGVs, if you're in the warehouse pulling material, all of those things are opportunities. So with that, folks, we've got about 2 minutes left here, and I don't see any other questions that have come in. I just want to remind everybody, and Noman, we'll come back over to you. This is a joint effort, right? All of us are here to help make everyone better at Industry 4.0. And IndustryX and their partnership with companies like Industry Reply and with Wayne State, we're here to help people out in the practitioner world. So if you or someone you know is interested in Industry 4.0 technology and has questions, please reach out to folks like Noman and Dr. Chinham and myself. You can reach us at either Industry Reply or at IndustryX, and it's, again, info.usa at industry or at reply.com or info@industryx.org. Feel free to reach out to us. And Noman, I know that even in the last 2 weeks since we did the first webinar, we've had several companies reach out to us and several individuals, everything from academic to practitioners that are reaching out and are interested in continuing to join. And I think that there's other opportunities with IndustryX too. Noman, we've got about a minute and a half left here. Can you just talk to us about both the fellow program as well as the student ambassador program with IndustryX? And Noman, you're still on mute, so if you want to come off that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So just to maybe a couple of comments. IIoT. I like to use the word from things to people. This is a program for people. People first, not things. So remember this, if you start with people, everything is easy. We start with things, it's very difficult. So keep things simple, people first. So that is the key point here. Now, in terms of the Student Ambassador Program, we launched in Student Ambassador Program last week, and we're waiting. We're getting a lot of applications from that. So we like to get students involved in this program, be a part of this program, be a part of this learning ecosystem. The other one is what we're doing is called the Fellows Network. We're building people from the industry to come on board. We have 2 networks that we have launched. One is in data science and analytics, and the other one is in supply chain and operations. So feel free to join. And I believe this collaboration with Reply, this is bringing a lot to the university, to our faculty, to the students, to the fellows. And this is the type of synergy that we need to solve these type of issues where we need a massive movements of change to bring Industry 4.0, because it's very expensive. People believe it's very difficult, but how can we make it easy with companies like Reply? That is the goal. That is our passion.
No, thank you very much, Noman. And again, a big thank you today to our panelists. Wendy, Florian, and Marco, we greatly appreciate your time today and your insights on the IIoT topic. And just a reminder to everybody, in 2 weeks, we'll be back to talk about supply chain and IIoT and Industry 4.0 and how to drive your supply chain. Thank you very much for attending today. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.